Hello everyone, we're just waiting a couple more minutes to see if there's a few more people joining us. Okay, I think we'll get going. So hello and welcome to today's webinar, where we'll be talking about how we can best leverage data and technology to efficiently target and engage early careers audiences. So thank you very much for joining us. And the session will last around 30 minutes and we'll follow this up with time for any questions. So do feel free to ask any questions as we go along using the Q&A box in the toolbar. And then we'll answer these ones at the end. Okay. Here we go. So just by way of introductions, my name is Sarah Brown and I'm Head of Operations and Client Care at Meet and Engage. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the company, then Meet and Engage provides candidate engagement technology in the form of live chat and chatbots. And our live chat technology allows you to personalize the candidate experience, enabling your candidates to interact with people within your business, so creating that all-important dialogue and bringing your opportunities in business to life more. And our chatbot technology is all about automation and the benefits of bringing automation into your processes to create efficiencies for your teams, but also creating an experience through the use of automation that brings benefits for your candidates too. And I'm joined today by Jackie.
Hi there, I'm the Youth Marketing Strategist at SMRS, and for those of you who may not have heard of us before, we're a marketing agency with a specialism in the early careers and youth marketing sector. We have an employer brand and education marketing heritage and have brought together the experience and expertise from both parts of the business to support employers with their early careers attraction and recruitment activity. So our offer to employers, is simple. We want to give you the big picture and help you target and attract the right early talent for your business. So we support our clients in a number of different ways. We can provide market insight, strategic advice, development of their youth brands, the creative development of recruitment campaigns, strategic planning and delivery of attraction marketing campaigns as well.
So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, for us, it's about breaking our webinar down into 4 key points, really. So firstly, we'll be looking at the challenges facing early careers employers, and then we'll talk a bit about how you can analyse your data to overcome these challenges. And once you know and understand your data, then you can look at how you can introduce technology, and we'll share our thoughts on when to consider digitalising the process. And our 4th key point is around why the customer experience is still so important, especially to your audiences. And finally, we thought we'd just leave you with some of the key takeaways. Let's start by understanding what we're seeing as the current challenges facing early careers employers. So when the Institute of Student Employers took a temperature check of its members at the start of the year, it encouragingly, and I think probably a bit surprisingly considering the uncertainties around Brexit, showed an optimistic outlook for the year ahead. And of the 100 members who responded, they were anticipating that demand for graduates would increase, estimating that they would recruit about 18% more students than they did last year. But at the same time, we're hearing from clients and other employers that they're planning to reduce the number of on-campus events they attend as part of their attraction strategy. So whilst the number of graduates that employers are looking to recruit looks set probably on the whole to remain the same, if not increase slightly, budgets don't appear to be doing the same thing. So one of the key challenges that we envisage early careers employers are facing is the decrease in resource, so both human and financial, for outreach activity. And employers are also keen to broaden activity to reach a wider pool of talent who may not be at the traditional Russell Group universities. So there's a balance to be struck between continuing levels of engagement at the core group, but also managing resources in an intelligent and innovative way to ensure there is scope to broaden engagement. And for apprentice employers who are still trying to understand this market and a creative strategy to suit, then the whole outreach activity is a positive minefield. There's just so many schools out there, you can't begin to reach out to all of them. So there needs to be a careful approach to schools outreach to ensure that there is the required impact. And sometimes it's just about knowing where to start. And it's also about educating this market differently too, not just the students, but also the influencers like parents and teachers and careers advisors, so that the benefits of apprenticeships are communicated. And there are lots of myths to dispel, and this is true for all sectors and employers. And another challenge that faces both graduate and apprentice recruiters is around student expectations for being able to connect with you 24/7. Think about the information needs of your audience. There are digital natives, let's make no mistake, and they've grown up with the ability to access huge amounts of information at their fingertips. This has made them incredibly impatient. They want to know the answer to their questions at the time that suits them. So do our outreach activities match these Gen Z expectations, or are we sticking to the methods and timings of old? Now, before we move on to our next slide, we thought we'd just ask if these challenges resonate with you. So I'm going to just share a quick poll with you, if I can do that. So let's have a poll. This is really about kind of what you guys see as your main challenges. And hopefully you can see that. I will just let you answer those questions. Or it's all moving through, lots of changes, looking kind of quite equal, although I think the diversity agenda bit is creeping up at the top. Jackie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't actually see the results this side. When we tested it, we didn't realise that. So yeah, I'll have to get you to share with me what our results are.
Well, let me tell you guys what it's coming at. Definitely over 50%. Actually, it's the increasing diversity and social mobility agenda, and then kind of decreasing budgets. And managing student expectations coming in second. So yeah, really interested. So thanks guys. I'll leave it up just for a second longer, but thanks very much for completing that one.
And I think that ties in really nicely with what we've been discussing before today's webinar as well. When we were determining the content of today, we both agreed that kind of resource and diversity challenges were really up there as well. So I think it's quite clear across the board. So with all of those competing challenges that Sarah just talked through, obviously it can be sometimes difficult to see the wood from the trees and kind of know where to start. And in that landscape where resources are decreasing and pressure to reach hiring targets and improve diversity of that talent pool that you're generating, a key consideration for me is about generating efficiency to identify those successes, but actually identify the gaps and where there's going to be scope for change, where you might be able to think about reallocating your resource maybe to different institutions or different channels to generate or get that best traction for you. And for this, we can make assumptions. We can go for our gut feel, and I'm an advocate of that. But personally, and for some of those on the webinar, and I know a couple of you have worked with me before, I like to take a bit of a step back and start with the data. Because it can throw up some interesting surprises that may just challenge your assumptions, or it may back up what you think you already know and gives you the hard facts to make a step change in your approach and do something a little bit different or a bit radical. So where to start looking at your data? I mean, it seems obvious, but make sure you're adequately analysing your own internal data to understand what's going on for you as a business, and make time for that. Make sure it's also from a range of different sources. So think beyond what you've got in your, perhaps just in your applicant tracking system, for example. Do look at it closely and understand in a deeper way who is feeding your applicant pipeline already. Where are they from? What schools, colleges, universities are they from? What types of institutions are they? Who's successful? Where are they from as well? So how are people transitioning through that recruitment journey? Obviously your testing providers, whoever you use, will be able to give you some insight into different demographics and how they're progressing, but really think about those suppliers of applicants into the pipeline, and maybe see if there's any disconnect. Are there schools, colleges and universities that are generating you lots of applicants but actually resulting in few or no hires at all? Or are they generating you lots of applicants with the skills and demographics and qualities that actually maybe you're looking to move away from? So interrogate that data a bit more, see what the issues are, what can you do to alter the composition if you feel that you need to. Is it an attraction issue, or actually is it a selection one? And then think about your on-campus and in-school activity. Does adding the data about that activity into the mix give more context to the story? is the activity you're doing on campus generating any applicants? And are those candidates that your team have spoken to out on campus or in school performing better throughout the process? So how's their eye for detail? And is that activity that you're doing in a face-to-face capacity sufficient to give you the types of people and the mix of people that you need? You can also look at it in the reverse way through things like regression analysis. So perhaps take those people who are or aren't successful in the business, perhaps 2, 3, 4 years in, onto their graduate or apprenticeship scheme once they're adjusting into the business, and track that back, link it back to their performance data and combine it with applicant information, ideally, so you can then begin to determine what the unique identifiers are for those people who are going to be successful in the business in the future. And then you can add into that your metrics around diversity and the kind of composition that you want to make any adjustments you make thereon in. It's a sophisticated approach, but something we've done for a few of our clients, and it does really help. And then there's the issue of efficiently targeting your activity. So reverting back to the ISE research, they actually show that 58% of employers still admit to targeting universities based on historic reasons, and 44% for locality. But isn't it a time for a more sophisticated approach? Personally, I think many of us have had our existing target list of universities and haven't maybe taken the time to really interrogate that and see what it's doing for us. So link it to your apps and hires data and listen to it. What isn't working for you? Where are you wasting your time and effort, your resource, your budget? Make the decision about sort of investing time and money to improve if you feel that those are the right institutions for you to be visiting, or bite the bullet and get them off the list, or use technology to engage with students at those universities, schools and colleges in a different way, perhaps to free up your physical resource and probably some financial resource as well, so that you can go and reach out and attract those different candidates that you want and broaden your talent pool. And of course, obviously, retargeting the same universities in the same way will just give you the same result. So if it's about attracting a different profile of students or really thinking about where you should target your activity, add an extra layer. Use market data and shared data to understand where you can find those students. What universities or schools or colleges are home to the students studying the subjects that you're looking to recruit from? Where are the students with the demographic profile that you desire? Where are you going to get that cognitive diversity from? What about the quality of the institution? Obviously, step outside the Russell Group, and there's still some great students at great universities. I was at the University of Westminster this morning. They were talking about some of the great stuff they do to encourage the diversity of their cohort there, but ensure that they feel confident to go out into the workplace. So consider things like the tariff and what they're doing around employability. There's tons of sources of information out there, but it can, if looked at in the right way, give you what you need in terms of a focused approach. So at SMRS, we actually aggregate data from a range of sources in a tool that we call Wyware, and we use that to support our clients in doing exactly this type of activity. Deloitte, for example, we're looking to increase female participation and tap into those students studying certain degree disciplines. They also wanted to target schools more efficiently. So we are able to bring together different sets of data along with their data to navigate that landscape for them and help them to refine their target list and pinpoint exactly where they should be focusing their activity. And this helped them vastly reduce the amount of on-campus activity and in-school activity that they were delivering that they felt weren't giving them the students that they needed. And don't forget to link up with your marketing teams if they're sort of separate to your recruiter teams. Use that channel and media data along with your event and applicant data to get a really clear picture about where and when you're engaging with your audience. So what activity is effective in driving applications and hires with the profile you're already looking for? Is it that face-to-face targeted activity, or is it your digital media, your social, programmatic advertising that's doing that for you? Is it your search? Again, with Deloitte as an example, we've created them a dashboard that brings together their attraction information, all that digital stuff. We track and tag their media, brings in their applicant tracking system data, and it identifies the applicant and hire volumes by the core demographics and other characteristics that they're looking for. So what we're able to do is manage their media buying in an agile way. So we can instantly see which of those third-party channels are generating us, the students, with the demographic characteristics and perhaps the subjects, etc., that they want, and we can move spend from the sources that aren't helping in that respect over to the ones that are. So we can just be a lot more smarter and efficient with the way that we use our human and financial resource. And then in terms of the wider engagement through your channels, what does that data tell you? So where are students engaging with you the most? Is it online or is it offline? Has that changed over time? Are they using social media now more than email, perhaps, to ask inquiries and questions when they go through the process? There's certain pages on your website that are more popular than others, and what are the themes around those as well? Are there any themes to the regular questions that come in to your team, and perhaps you can counteract that proactively through perhaps digital means? And are there any other trends that you can tap into? So when are they engaging with you? What part of the year? What month? What time of day even? And when are they not? When are they becoming disengaged and perhaps withdrawing from the process? Your data will tell you that. Bright Network recently released some research actually that states that 25% of students actually give up on a quarter of applications that they've started. And then a further 11% of students gave up on more than half that they started. And the reason why? Well, because the process is too long and hard, say 45% of those. So is there something that you can do as an organisation to stop this? Can you intervene proactively to keep your students engaged and help answer the questions if they're struggling? But beyond all of this, and most importantly at all, use the data definitely, but use it to help you test and learn. So look at the data, see what it tells you, but change stuff, and then make sure you go back and review it to see what the impact has been. It's all too easy to make a change and then never go back to see what's happened. And I know it sounds obvious, but sometimes we just don't have the time, especially with that decreasing or increasing pressure, should I say, on your resource, especially time.
And I thought I'd sort of chip in here just with maybe a couple of client examples that I'd share around how they've used and analysed their data. And one of our clients in the utilities and energy sector ran a piece of internal research a few years ago that showed that only 7% of people who they spoke to at careers fairs went on to apply for one of their graduate schemes. So that's a staggeringly low number, and it really wasn't one that they could justify the continuing resource spend for on-campus activities. So they looked at alternative ways that they could connect with students at university still while cutting down that face-to-face events. And another example I want to share was for Diageo. Now, Diageo wanted to keep candidates engaged and warm and informed during all stages of the recruitment journey. And part of this involved paying special attention to candidate behaviour as they moved through the recruitment funnel and understanding points where the candidate stalled or might need some additional support. And one of the observation was the high number of female candidates who hadn't completed their video interview. So as an intervention, Diageo created a daily drop-in session on the meet&engage platform to address any concerns and provide support for them at that point. And interestingly, across the drop-in sessions, 91% of the female candidates who attended asked questions relating to the video interview, showing there was a clear concern from this audience around that stage of the process. And then following these sessions, 80% of those females who'd attended went on to take their video interview. So really good examples there where clients have been able to analyse their own data to look at ways to improve their recruitment strategy and also support their candidates better.
So on to the how, and before we start, we're just going to take a quick temperature check on who is using technology already throughout their kind of attraction, selection and onboarding process. So who's engaging with their audiences throughout this process in that way. So Sarah's just put the poll up and hopefully can highlight what the results show after that. So if you perhaps tick as many of these that you see in front of you that you're participating in.
Fantastic. We've got a few people. So virtual open days definitely seems to be something that you guys are using at the moment, and also the kind of the one-to-one live chat as well. So that's seems to be something that's also being used too. Actually, interesting. Look, gamification's coming in too.
Okay. Yeah, we actually, my previous organisation, we did run some virtual open days there, virtual careers fairs. It was quite an undertaking for us, something quite different. We didn't know how students were going to react, but actually was really positively received, both by the employers that participated in that sort of open or virtual careers fair. We did it rather than open day, but actually students and employers alike got really involved in it. So that was yeah, a positive experience.
And definitely seems to be 64% using virtual open data. Yeah, really interesting. No one's using chatbots or simulation those at the moment, but brilliant. Thanks very much. Let me end that polling now.
Okay, so obviously you've looked at your data, and hopefully by that point you'll have a much better idea of who you are and aren't engaging and the ways in which you're doing so. So then really it becomes a question of how. Does it need to be a face-to-face physical activity, or could technology lend a helping hand here? When communicating with student audiences, many employers, and I think I've been guilty of it certainly in the past, have come from the starting point of what we want from the transaction. It's really important not to forget to give consideration to the value exchange and what the audience needs from that engagement as well. So what is their journey, and how does your particular interaction or engagement method add value to that part of the process for them, but actually also as well as you? So at that attraction stage, and this is quite a simplistic view of looking at the journey, is it perhaps just a transactional part of the process? Is it just part of their information gathering process, confirming facts that they're looking for? In which case, does the cost, human and financial, and we know, we all know too well how much it costs to attend some of these careers fairs, but is the cost of that physical presence really adding value? Or could it be an engagement that's digitally led? Could tech lend a hand here and kind of save you time and money by not being out of the office? Or is it part of the process where they're looking for more insight into the business to really maybe get a feel of your culture and your people, and then how to be successful through the process? Maybe you're looking to inspire them with more than just words and facts and information, in which case an interaction that has a more emotional connection delivered through that kind of face-to-face or physical activity is probably going to be better placed. So it's a case of really being critical and determine what the impact is that you want to have, and then choose the right format for delivery. Weigh up that cost benefit analysis of each for that face-to-face engagement, which I still believe is really, really important in terms of influence, but actually digital activity will give you that extra reach.
And so if you take your on-campus activity, for example, you might decide that instead of continuing to attend multiple careers fairs, you might introduce virtual careers fairs instead. These will still allow you to communicate with your intended students, but they might also reach a potentially wider audience too. And you can then look at hosting more meaningful face-to-face interactions, such as workshops or skill days, at universities you've identified as key to your attraction strategy. But then why not wrap technology around these face-to-face events? What's the harm in doing that? So, for example, if you're host a live group chat before an event, but potentially also afterwards as a wrap-up, and for those people to ask any additional questions, that can only boost engagement and fuel interest in your opportunities.
So then moving on to the selection process. The candidate here is going to be really concerned about preparing for the next stage. The tests, the assessments, the interviews. There's going to be lots and lots of questions they have about the process, and that's a fact for sure. They're going to want to know what to expect and perhaps how they can do their very best. So an opportunity for them to ask these questions and get real tailored responses is going to be key. But there's also going to be a degree of confidence on their part that comes into play here, especially when considering those students from perhaps underrepresented groups and their progression through the process. Perhaps we need to help them boost their confidence by giving them more contact and opportunities to engage, maybe with people in the business already who went before them, so they can really connect with somebody who's been where they are and is from a similar background to them. But actually, does it always have to be a face-to-face engagement? That's something for you to consider. So in summary, revert back to the data, analyse your customer journey and see where those pain points are. When are your customers craving engagement? Is there a particular point where students are dropping out of that selection process? If so, consider what you need to do to engage.
That's interesting. So many of our clients use the live chat platform to help prepare candidates during all stages of the selection process, but particularly they come to us because they want to try and reduce dropout at assessment centres. But they also use the chats as a way to take the temperature of how prepared these candidates feel through the use of the in-chat polls. So for example, by asking the question, how prepared do you feel about attending your upcoming assessment centre? At the start of the chat, but then again at the end, they can get a real sense of what their candidates are feeling. And then looking at the raw data results of those polls, if they identify someone who looks like they could do with some additional support, then they can always give them a ring and have that then physical contact with them to help boost that confidence that they feel. And feedback from clients who host these types of chats show that candidates are more likely to go on to attend an assessment centre, and then also more likely to be successful if they have joined one of those pre-event chats.
So then on to onboarding. How are you actually keeping your candidates warm through the process now? We've spoken about earlier on about Gen Z and wanting it to be a really sort of 24/7 approach, but they're also really keen for that to be personalised as well. So how frequently are you engaging with them to make sure that they're keeping you front and centre of mind, and also for you to be able to counteract the attractiveness of a competing employer? Is there an opportunity for you to drip feed them information to start to get them ready for day one? Is there an opportunity to begin sharing a sense of community amongst your new starts? Perhaps getting them to get to know a buddy if they've been allocated one. We all know that reneges are on the rise and averaging at about 7% according to the ISE. So actually, is there a way of you using tech in a smarter way to ensure your candidates are engaged and have a real almost brand advocacy before they start with you?
So we see that the type and frequency of your onboarding activity will vary hugely depending on the number of offered candidates you have to communicate with. For the high volume offers, being able to digitalize more mundane admin tasks could be a real win for your teams. But it's also often not practical to get everyone together for face-to-face events. So digital solutions during this stage of the process is likely to have a higher uptake. And it's also a chance to think about how you can best prepare these students for the workplace. One of our large financial services clients, they host regular onboarding Q&As using the live chat platform, but they intersperse these with chats aimed at promoting the business as a great place to work. So obviously, hopefully reducing renege rates, but also to make sure that their future talents start on day one much more business ready. So why is customer experience so important still? Well, the stats speak for themselves. 80% will accept a job offer over another based on relationship formed during the recruitment journey. 38% more likely to accept a job offer if satisfied with their candidate experience. But look, these are stats you've probably seen and heard before. So what else can we say about why it's so important to offer your candidates a consumer-grade experience? And to put it simply, it's because they will expect it. This is a discerning audience who've grown up expecting to access and evaluate a broad range of information before purchase. And in their mind, their career is no different. So it's a timely reminder that recruitment is a mutual purchase. And given the competitive markets you're fishing in, how and when you choose to engage with these purchases can and will have a big impact on their intentions towards you. And remember, even if they do drop out of the candidate journey, they might still end up as a future customer or tell others about their negative experiences. The rise in popularity of the likes of Rate My Placements and Glassdoor shows us the impact a bad experience can have. Understanding who your candidates want to engage with within your organisation is also key to providing an enriched experience. In recent years, we've seen employer branding increasingly involving current graduates and apprentices in social media interactions and marketing campaigns, to talk more honestly about the downsides and challenges in their chosen career, as well as the positives. So being able to offer candidates access to your current employees during the recruitment journey can be a great way of starting that authentic dialogue and help improve brand appeal and dispel myths and demonstrate diversity along the same time. And as well as providing opportunities for peer-to-peer engagement, we also need to look at how we support candidates throughout that recruitment journey. Now, Jackie mentioned that Bright Network stack of 45% of graduates stating that they would give up on an application if it was unclear, too long or too hard. And a quarter of female and BAME applicants said that they dropped out as they no longer had confidence in their ability to do the job. So just like the Diageo example I mentioned earlier, if you can provide easily accessible touch points every stage of the application process, then you're much more likely to be there to dispel those niggles and doubts before they turn into an actual dropout. And if you've analysed your data to look at where your pain points are, then you'll be able to look at what action would be most appropriate to implement to overcome these and create a great candidate experience to boot.
So, in summary, the 5 things to take away with you today. Understand your challenges. What is it that you need to overcome? Then interrogate the data, find it first. There's plenty of it out there, and of your own internal data as well, but make sure you don't get lost in it. Keep your goal really focused. Focus your resources. Use the insight to support you in making those decisions about the right targeting, the right timing, and the right method of engagement to help you in the best way use your resources. Make sure you're adding value throughout. Make sure it's not all about value for you as an employer. Keep that customer journey front and center. And innovate. Be creative, be bold. Tech is out there. So just think about what's right for you and give it a go. So that's the end of our talk. We'll have a look and see if there's any questions for us to answer.
I can see there are a few ones coming through.
Okay, so we've had one question in. What other data could I use apart from my own, and how do I access it? So there's, I suppose it depends on the objectives, and there's a range of it out there. Certainly sources that we use frequently are HESA data, data from the ONS, Office for National Statistics. Department for Education have information on the government website about schools and the performance of students at those schools, and some of that profiling information that you need. Universum has, and Times Higher Education, they all have information about the rankings of particular universities. You can get local authority information around kind of some of those, the sort of ethnicity and social profile of certain different kind of postcode areas. So you can start to use that to think about the demographics of either institutions, schools, the kind of quality of them as well. And then you can source other information to help you with benchmarking. So the Institute of Student Employers, High Flyers, Trendants, all of those organisations provide kind of benchmarking information. So you can use your internal data and see how you're performing against everybody else as well. And some of it, unfortunately, is paid and can be expensive, but there is a lot of free information out there. But I would just proceed with a word of caution in just making sure you apply a questioning frame of mind and use some information from different resources and different sources, because it can, used together, can just build a bit more of a clearer picture for you. So you have got some quick wins there.
So having a look to see, there's another question that's coming here about sharing any examples of our clients who sort of do this well. And actually, if I sort of take it from a meet and engage point of view, then we get quite a lot of early careers clients who come to us with a particular pain point. And that may well be because they have a high renege rate, so they need to be really focusing on that onboarding period, or maybe it's they are seeing dropouts before assessment centres, or even I was chatting to someone the other day that they see actually they have a really good in process and they don't see lots of dropouts, but actually they're getting really high volumes of candidates applying in the first place, and they kind of want to try and reduce that. And so what tends to happen is that we will come in and look at how we can use live chat to help solve one particular part of that kind of concern or query, and they'll sort of implement that and they'll use it and they'll see the benefits, and then quite often they'll then look at going, okay, well actually we've kind of covered that bit off, let's say the onboarding period. And then what we'll do is that we'll also then bring live chat in before that. So let's look at the in-process stage and then potentially attraction too. So actually where we're getting with our clients over a number of years is that actually right the way through that process is that they'll be looking at this sort of touch points and hosting sort of, I suppose, engaging topics of live chats that people can kind of come and join. And actually kind of even goes back to sort of before the attraction stage. So, you know, again, I was talking to someone the other day about, okay, well, look, if you've got your summer interns, you know, can we be hosting chats to kind of engage those people before they start? But actually, really importantly, when they've left, because, you know, those are the people that hopefully are going to go on and actually apply and be sort of successful. You know, hosting chats specifically aimed at those guys can be, again, a real win for kind of getting those applications through.
And we've got one here, I think Erin was asking me to repeat the stat, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Erin, was the one about reneges. So I mentioned earlier on that the ISE report, that on average, employers are seeing about a 7% renege rate. So hopefully that answers that question for you as well.
Let's have a look. What other ones coming through? Sort of challenges around sort of implementing technology, sort of like live chat and chatbots. And actually, I suppose it comes down to kind of looking at what it's not about challenging of implementing, it's more the challenge of what you're trying to overcome. So I kind of talk about before of going, well, where are those pain points? What are you trying to achieve? How are you trying to let candidates engage with you? Is it because you just need to provide them contact with the recruitment team? Is it that actually you want to provide more opportunities for those peer-to-peer connections? And actually, if you can really get to grips with those bits, certainly the implementation of Meet and Engage live chat is then actually a very simple and easy thing to do. And then the chatbots as well. So we're seeing more of our kind of early careers clients looking at how the chatbots can help them. And at the moment, so the dialogue and discussions are happening about that upfront piece. So the kind of on the website, you know, they might have lots of different graduate schemes that they're trying to recruit into. Maybe that's really confusing. Maybe candidates don't quite know which ones they're supposed to do. Maybe they've got concerns about the application process. And actually what we're seeing is if we kind of create this really sort of efficient workflow that actually can guide those candidates through and help answer some of those questions, that frees up the inbox for the team massively, because those answers are already being prepared. And actually it can also then help just to give those candidates a much richer experience before they get onto the post. And crucially, we sort of talked about those clients who have the lucky sort of point of too many applications, actually can really help to try and put some people off from applying in the first place, which is
we've had another one here from Linda. Our ATS is very poor at reporting. The data is incomplete or perhaps incorrect. What would we suggest? Maybe exploring a new ATS, but in lieu of that, and I know that's an expensive and time-consuming process, is really just try to understand and unpick where in that process you're losing data to try and get it in as complete a way as possible. And for me, I think it's that consistency of inputting data as well, which really helps. So wherever possible, get people to pick from drop-down lists, etc. as well. So I've just been doing a bit of analysis for one of our clients from their applicant tracking system, and it's free text for all of the different degree disciplines and universities. So it's been quite a painful process in trying to cleanse that and make that better. So actually we can get some meaning out of that information for them, because actually they're wanting to recruit people from certain types of degrees, and it's hard to categorize those at the moment. So for instance, using the JAX codes that university degree courses follow can really quite quickly help you begin to categorize those. So wherever possible, try and standardize it. But then also, you know, looking at, it is difficult with that applicant and hire information to, you know, if you have got those gaps in your system, but try and fill those wherever possible through, you know, collecting information in perhaps different ways.
I can see there's another one. I don't know, Jackie, whether we talk about the virtual careers fairs.
Yes.
I think you had an example about that, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. So within my previous role, I worked for ICAEW. We took a bit of a bold step and delivered a virtual careers fair for all of our employers. So those who recruit people to train for the ICAEW Chartered Accountancy qualification, the ACA. And we had several of our employers involved in that. So we opened that one for a live day, well, 3 live days, because we ran it in 2 international locations as well, so across Southeast Asia. So we had the challenge of different time zones to be competing with as well. We actually found it really successful. As with all events, we did, you experienced a certain amount of dropout rate. We did an awful lot around the communication to both employers, and I don't think we've got any of the employers that I had involved on as attendees on here, but we did quite a bit of pre-communication to just help them navigate the process, because it is quite different and it's a bit new. But what we found is students just kind of came in. Lots of them would just come along to stands and just look at and watch what was going on. They could enter into sort of a forum chat with people, or take it offline into a private chat if they were discussing issues that they didn't want everybody to see. But we could load brochures up there, host webinars and presentations. So we did have a part of the virtual environment that was an auditorium. So we did lots of webinars, hands up on our part. We did pre-record all of those, but we were there with a live Q&A, so that we were able to answer questions at the live time. We found volume of traffic peaked in the morning when we opened, and the one I sort of delivered there live. We opened at 10 a.m. So we had a flux of interest then, and then we tended to have a little bit more later on in the afternoon. We did run it into the evening as well, because we weren't really sure what time students were going to attend, because that was an undergrad one for sort of students still at university. And then just prior to me leaving ICAW, we were in the midst of organising and planning one for school leavers, parents and teachers. And I believe that was equally successful. It was quite a time investment in setting it up, but actually second time round, it was a lot less laborious on our side. So, I mean, I'm an advocate of the virtual careers fair in just helping extend your reach. And the challenge for me is that I had a very finite amount of resource to get out on campus. And as a professional body, we had to represent all employers of all different sizes and be as broad as we could in our reach. So for me, it was all about getting engagement with those students who maybe didn't have the confidence to come and ask those questions face to face at their careers fair, or didn't have the finances to travel to one of the national apprenticeship shows or UCAS fairs, etc. So it was all it was all about sort of extending reach and getting to those students I wouldn't normally have seen. And then there will be decisions there about, okay, how do they then take this a little bit further?
I think it's really interesting, actually, because about the confidence aspect of people feeling confident to ask questions, because that's certainly the feedback we get from people being able to use kind of the group chats and things like that, whereas, and this is sort of client feedback saying that if they'd gone to various events, they probably wouldn't have people sort of put their hands up and ask these types of questions, but actually the slightly anonymous part of being on a kind of a live chat, and I imagine the same for the virtual careers fair, is that actually they can ask those questions that they might not necessarily have felt confident to do with putting their hand in the air or going up to speaking to someone sort of face to face. And again, I imagine, like we're talking about these digital natives, they're used to this. We might think it's all quite new and sort of innovative technology, but they're probably like expect it and sort of think the face to face stuff is
And they did have high expectations of the technology as well. Personally, I was a bit like, come on, there's only so much we can do here. But yes, whilst there was a little bit of, you know, it was a little bit new for them, but actually once they were in the environment, they wanted it to be like a computer game, I think. So I was like, you know, it's not virtual reality yet.
No.
We may get there one day. And so Erin's asking what platform I use. We used On24 for that particular one. There are other providers out there. I sound like the BBC there, but there are other providers out there. So each has a different, you know, suite of functionality to help. So you just got to determine what's right for you and what you want to use.
I think also some universities are also planning virtual careers fairs as well. So it might even be that some of the connections that you have with career service at the universities is to tap into them, and they may well be offering this type of thing as well.
Yeah. And it was nice because you could do the live day, but then just keep the environment open. So whilst you didn't have the live chat, students could still go in and access all the resources in one small place. So it was nice from that side of it as well.
I'm just conscious that we are nearly getting to the end of things. So just to say, guys, look, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you found it useful and taken some sort of key points away that hopefully can help you guys and your teams to kind of look at that data and technology a bit better. We're providing a copy of the recording of the webinar in the next few days, so if you did want to pick out any points, obviously you can listen to it again if you would choose to. But obviously, please feel free to drop either of us a line if you'd like to follow up on anything that we've talked about today. So that just leaves to say thank you so much again for attending, and we hope you have a lovely rest of the afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.